Greetings and blessings, you guys. It's your coach, Marquita, again. In order to truly be financially prosperous, which is one of your goals for building a successful business, you've got to be prosperous in your soul. This is exactly what the Apostle John says in 3 John chapter 1, verse 2, where he says, "Beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers." Now, this is essential because if you don't really look at the condition of your soul, you'll sabotage yourself and you won't build a successful business, a strong financial portfolio. You won't fulfill the purpose that God has ordained for your life. Instead, you'll believe the lies of the enemy and continue to be derailed from the very things that God has placed before you. And so I want to share a couple of resources with you. First, there's Discovering Your Divine Design, where we actually look at how God has designed you in 7 weeks. And in that second week, we uncover damaging lies, the lies that have been sown into your soul that will get you off course and off track, those things that will cause you to self-sabotage, those things that will keep you out of the will of God. And then we continue on until we help you discover your purpose, which is completely connected to your identity. I also want to encourage you to order my book, 5 Biblical Keys to Unlocking Wealth. It is available on Amazon.com. If you just Google my name or search my name, Marquita Brooks, both of my books are going to pop up. And this one is specifically focused on this very thing. It's actually based on 3 John chapter 1, verse 2, as we look at all 5 of the biblical keys that are revealed in that verse. And so soul prosperity is key number 2. We've got to actually look at the condition of your soul. And so as we look at key number 2 in my book, I actually go through 4 essential deliverances that you need in order to be prosperous in your soul. The first one is deliverance from slavery and oppression. Now, the Lord tells us in John chapter 8 that anyone who has sinned has been a slave to sin. So we've all been enslaved in some type of way. That type of enslavement changes our thinking, our worldview, our view of ourselves, our view of the Lord, our view of finances and resources, because slaves are filled with fear, and particularly a fear of lack, so that we compete, we strive, and we don't believe that, our God has abundant wealth. We don't believe that we have the power to create wealth, and we will see ourselves differently than our God, who is the best businessman and investor, a premise that's established in this book. He has really designed us to see ourselves in one way, but slavery will have us to look at ourselves in a completely different way. But this is particularly true if you come from a people who have ever been historically enslaved and oppressed, because mindsets, are shared over the years, over generations, and there are particular things that the enemy sows to keep people in bondage. And so deliverance from slavery and oppression is actually going to teach you about the negative thoughts that the enemy puts in your mind to keep you enslaved, so that you will not see yourself as prosperous. You won't see yourself as having the power to create wealth, and you'll continue to sabotage yourself, feeling the spirit of oppression holding you down. But God himself can set you free from it. The next deliverance is deliverance from a fear of lack. Now that comes specifically from the spirit of mammon. The Lord tells us, of course, in Matthew chapter 6, that we can't serve both God and mammon. And mammon was a name they used for money, but it was also an idol that was worshipped. It is a demonic spirit that gives us 2 things. It feeds us either fear of lack or greed. Deliverance from greed is the third deliverance. And so as we look at this, we want to make sure that you are not afraid that you're not going to have enough, because the truth of the matter is, whatever we fear is what will come upon us. And so when we fear lack, we actually start to operate in lack. We operate in a mindset of lack. And in operating in a mindset of lack, we will limit ourselves and will limit everything and everyone around us, instead of seeing God's limitless purposes that are established for us. Deliverance from greed is very important, because that's going to include being selfish and hoarding and just wanting, all the resources for ourselves. And that selfishness is fed to us oftentimes when we've not learned limits, when limits weren't set for us in our youth, when we were spoiled, things like that. And that's not a kingdom principle. That's not something God would ever do. Certainly he owns all the cattle on 1,000 hills, and he's the lover of our souls, and he's our heavenly Father. He will give you the desires of your heart, but he doesn't spoil spoil us. He teaches us to be good stewards. He teaches us to handle our finances well. And he teaches us to invest and to deal with resources in a kingdom way. And so we've got to be delivered from greed. Even if you have a fear of lack, you could still actually need a deliverance from greed. Because this culture, this generation teaches us that we should have whatever we want when we want it. We have this spirit of entitlement. God's got to deliver us from that so that we can really submit to his will. The fourth deliverance is one that's particularly you'll see it a lot among believers, and it's deliverance from money loathing. And I remember when the Lord had to deliver me from it years ago. Money loathing comes from believers misinterpreting the scriptures. When Paul says the love of money is the root of all evil, where the enemy teaches us that money itself is the root of all evil. And so we want to get money as far away from us as we can to make sure that it doesn't defile us and we don't become greedy. But that is not God's will. He's given us financial resources as a tool to advance his kingdom. Money should serve us and serve his kingdom purposes. And so I want to encourage you to allow God to minister to your soul so that you can be prosperous in your soul and in all things, and he can bless you and your business and all those that you serve.